Good morning and welcome back to my scrap room. My name is Jennifer Perry, and today we're going to be working on a process that I only do once a year because it makes my brain hurt, and that is getting my photographs ready to scrap. And for me, this is a painful process. I can do the creative part of scrapbooking till the cows come home. I love the creative process, but for me, finding the photographs and writing the story just makes my brain bleed. Now we're going to take a break for just a moment in what I'm doing and explain that I'm about to text my mother-in-law because this batch of photographs, after I finish fighting with this rubber band, this batch of photographs, I can see in my brain where we are. I can see the sign in my brain, but I cannot remember the name of this restaurant. And I know she knows what it is and where it is and the name of it off the top of her head. So I'm just texting her really quickly and saying, help, I'm having a brain fart. So that's what that is right there for a moment. But anyhow, I had a couple of coupons for persnickety prints, so I decided to break this process down into 200 photograph batches. And again, I did that for a couple of reasons. A, I had the coupons, and B, a few years ago, I was sending about 600 photographs off to a printer, and the printer wouldn't accept them. It was too big of a batch for them to download. So I ended up having to break them into 200 photograph batches. And just since then, that's the number that I stop at, is 200. Once I get to 200 photographs, I make another order. And I've never had that problem again. So that's why I went ahead and broke these down into 200 photograph batches. Slowed me down just a little bit because I had to wait for 2 different batches to come in, but it worked out in the end. And in between waiting for the batches to come in, I went ahead and got all of my ephemera pulled together and matched up what I could with the ephemera for the photographs. So it all just, that little break waiting for the post office worked out well. But what I'm doing is I'm just breaking the photographs into their little piles of what I think I'm going to scrap. See here, she's getting back to me. Sorry, I forgot my word there for a moment. And giving me the spelling because I couldn't spell this one either. But I'm just breaking the photographs down into what I think are going to be the pages that I'm going to make or the subjects that I want to scrap. And sometimes within those subjects, I have multiple pictures and multiple pages. So like for a road trip, I'll put all the road trip pictures together, and then once I'm done finding all of the road trip pictures, I'll go back through and make those piles into individual page piles. Does that make sense? So you'll see me do that in just a moment. I'm starting off by rubber banding them together, and I will eventually put them in envelopes. This is just me getting them in their little piles to begin with. And I will also either put my planner for that year in my drawer. I have an ephemera drawer that I throw everything into as I collect everything. So I've got like a 2018 drawer, 2019 drawer, 2020 drawer. You get the picture. But I will either put my planner for that drawer, or I will go through and print all 12 of my Google Calendar for that year. And I forgot to mention, these are my 2019 pictures. I have 2018 finished. In fact, I'm working on that album right now. So I am going ahead and I'm printing 2019 so that those will be ready. So that's why this is titled 2019, is because these are my 2019 photographs. So again, I'm waiting for the second batch of photographs to come in. So I thought, let's pull the ephemera. Let's see if I can match up ephemera with the pictures that I already have and just get that little step done. And then I had a ton of envelopes. These envelopes are left over from my dad's memorial cards and Kayla's graduation announcements. I didn't need as many envelopes as I had announcements. So I just went, all right, let's just recycle these envelopes and put everything that I need for that batch of photographs in the envelope so that I don't lose it. And there's a CD here for some photographs that I'm not printing, but I don't want to lose the CD. So I'm going to keep that CD, and I'm actually going to mark it. And yes, it's for Tiger King. We did go to the Tiger King facility way before the legal troubles and the Netflix show. We had no idea all that was coming up. And to be quite honest with you, it was something we wish we hadn't done. Once we got there and we realized what it was, we were like, okay. But we had already paid for the private tour. We'd already paid for all this stuff, thinking it was going to be better. And we were really disappointed. That's why I'm not printing those photographs, but I don't want to lose that CD. So I'm keeping it with the photographs, and I will put that in the album when it is finished. So basically, I'm just, adding ticket stubs, receipts that may have dates on them, everything that goes with that section of photographs, I'm putting in the envelope or near the envelope. During this process, I'm gathering details also. Like I have a bunch of photographs that I stole from Kayla's Instagram that's going to go with her college graduation. I'm going to make a corresponding through the years, since I couldn't get her to give me any pictures the entire 4 years she was in college. The kid would not take any pictures. So I just went and stole things off her Instagram. And that's how I'm going to scrap those couple of pictures. Or I looked up dates for what we did on what day for road trips. Or any of the playbills from plays, or maps from aquariums or zoos, anything like that. I went and gathered all that information, gathered all the side notes, all the side stories, so that when I am scrapbooking this stuff, it's front and center. Because right now it's all these memories. It's like a movie playing in your head. Oh yeah, I remember when we did this, and I remember when we did this. So the entire year is playing through your head, and all these little bitty snippets are coming to the forefront, and you're like, let me write that down before I forget. So that's part of the reason why I'm putting these in an envelope, because I can put notes on the envelope, I can put dates on the envelope on the very front. I can put, if I'm doing multiple pages, with the photographs that are in that envelope. So that's basically what I'm doing between the memorabilia. And see, there's a newspaper clipping that my aunt sent me from my dad's memorial. Little things like that that I don't want to lose, I'm adding to the piles of pictures. Another thing that I did is I had a pile of pictures from Tampa Zoo. And this is a zoo that we went to quite a bit when I was a child. And I had memories of how it looked when I was a child. But the pictures that I took did not match, because you're talking 50 years of history with the zoo. And I was like, you know what? It might be a fun little side page to add to this album to have a few of the vintage pictures. So I went to Google and I looked up Tampa Zoo or Zoo Tampa and found some vintage pictures of like the entrance, or some of they had like Fairy Tale Land, of some of the pictures basically from the 60s and 70s that I remembered the park being. And I pulled those aside and saved them, and I'm going to print those out so that along with the current day pictures of that zoo and the memories, I'm also going to put some vintage pictures in, especially with this trip, because it was the same week that we went to Florida for my dad's memorial. So my memories were very tender of time in that area, whether it be the state park that we had the memorial in, or the side trip that we took, because Mike wanted to do something happy. It was such a hard trip. He wanted to do something happy for me, so we just took one day and disappeared and went to the zoo. So I'm thinking for this album also, I'm going to just do a little separate page, maybe even a 9x12 that gets stuck in between the zoo pages, of my memories of what the zoo used to look like, because it was the same week of my dad's memorial, so it's all going to be together in the timeline of the album. So that was another thing that went in my head as I'm sorting all of these pictures of, okay, I want to do that too. I want to write this story, and I want to write this memory of what I'm doing. I just put all the cruise pictures in the pouch that I'm taking with me to retreat. So that's what that was, is me putting that away before I could forget. And here's, I grabbed the story of my sister writing down her experience with my dad. Unfortunately, she was with my dad when he passed, and it was traumatic for her. So that was her part of the story. And then I went back through and wrote my part. And I printed it out. I'm going to put both parts side by side. And she also included some very private photographs that I think I'm going to do some hidden journaling. I was very angry when she first put the photos on Facebook. And I think it was mainly because it was just too soon. It was like the day after he passed. And they're very private photographs. It's not photographs that many people, it was shocking to me, and it's not photographs that many people would even put on Facebook. I understood what she was doing. I got it. But at the time I was angry. And in hindsight, I'm glad she did it, because that's something I wouldn't have. So I grabbed that off of Facebook, but I wanted to have her story along with mine. So I think what I'm going to do is those particular photographs, I'm going to go ahead and scrap those photographs, scrap her story, and then on the back side put my story. And I think I'm going to do it as a 9x12 and stick that in between the actual pages in one page protector. So like the 12x12 page protector that's going to have 2 front and back pages, I'm going to put that hidden in between those 2 pages with like a pull tab or something, to where if you're just casually flipping through, you're not going to see that. But if it's something you're looking for, you'll pull the pull tab, see the rest of the story. I could do the 9x12 and just stick it in between in the rings and have it be visible, but it's such, it's such a private moment that I feel like I need to document it. It needs to be documented, but it needs to be in a private way. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is slip it in between 2 layouts in one page protector and just have it be like with a little ribbon or something to pull it if you're interested. So anyway, with that, in hindsight, I'm glad she did it. But when she did it, we were all just so tender when that happened. But again, along with that, the vintage photographs and everything of the zoo all goes together. And I may do some different journaling of my memories with the zoo in the same fashion. And see, like, this is the zoo now. This is present day, but yet in my brain, when I go to that zoo, I'm seeing all the flashbacks from when I was a kid. And this is the second batch of photographs that came in from Persnickety. So what I'm doing is combining the batches and matching the pictures, because when they print your pictures, they don't print them in the order that you send them. They print them in whatever order they want. So you've got to go back through and match everything all up and put everything together. And I think I'm missing one picture. I know I sent it to the printer, but I don't know if it didn't get printed for some reason. So that's where I'll break out my selfie Canon printer, and I'll just print that one picture, and I'll probably print the vintage zoo pictures the same way and just get that added to this process. The other reason why I kind of like to batch print the way that I do these photographs is, like with some retreat pictures, I had probably 20 different retreat pictures. And at first I thought they were all the same retreat. And then I realized, wait a minute, the tables are different colors. So is this 2 different retreats? And then I got to looking, and yeah, it was 2 different retreats. So I was able to separate the retreats. And from that, I also looked at, what are we wearing? Is this possibly the January retreat? Or is this the May retreat? Do we have on long sleeves and blankets in our laps? Or are we dressed more spring-like? And that's how I ended up breaking up those photographs into 2 different events, because at first glance, it was one event. It was retreat. And it was only after I really was looking at the photographs that I noticed, no, wait, this is 2 events. And then you just saw me texting again. I was texting Michael because on this road trip to Wisconsin Dells, we started off in Columbus, Ohio, because he had a talk that he needed to give in Columbus, Ohio. So we started off there, and then we ended up in Wisconsin Dells for another conference and another talk. Well, he was determined, absolutely determined, he was going to get my feet into one of the Great Lakes. He grew up in Michigan. He grew up around the Great Lakes. And when he found out that while I have seen the Great Lakes, I have never stuck my foot in the Great Lakes, he was determined. He was just absolutely determined to get me into the Great Lakes. Here's a kitty cat coming up. Hi, baby. Nope, do not. Really? Oh, you turd. Pardon. Cat coming through. Anyway, he was determined to get my feet in a Great Lake. So this was me going, okay, I know that's a Great Lake, but which one? And that was me texting him because he was at work at the time. So we are just about finished with the sorting process, and yes, I know it's been 15 minutes worth of sorting, but that is a huge part of the process, is getting everything sorted and getting it into its proper piles for pages. And the next part is going to be journaling. Now I do my journaling a little bit differently. I type my journaling out because my daughter is dyslexic, and eventually all of the albums that I do are going to be in her care. I only have one child. So what I do is I type it out to make it easier for her to read the memories and the stories, and then I print all of my journaling onto vellum, because to me, vellum matches everything. Vellum can go with any layout. I can make it be a matte, I can make it match, I can do whatever with vellum. So what I do is my husband just put together a little template. He broke an 8.5 by 11 Microsoft Word document into fours, and I write the stories. I write 4 different stories to one piece of vellum. So I will write 4 stories, set those photographs aside, and then I will print the vellum. And for me, this is the part of the process that takes the longest, because you stop, you look at the photograph, you let that memory come to the forefront, and then you have to actually write the memory. And I'm not a writer. I'm not creatively put together when it comes to writing. So for me, it's hard for me not to do. It's a pizza party. On this day, we had fun. It takes a lot for me to sit down and write something halfway entertaining or halfway personal. Like it took, as I was writing my side of the story for the memorial, I was sobbing during that process. So I even had to just take a break and walk away for a few minutes after writing that, because it takes a lot out of you to write each of these stories, especially when you're doing it one at a time. But it is so worth it when I sit down to scrapbook and do the creative part that I have already done and finished what I consider the hard part. It is a multi-day process to get this done, but I am more than willing to sit down for a couple of days and do the hard part so that when I can get to the creative part, it flows faster for me. So I will type up and print out a couple of pages. I'll let them dry. I'll cut them apart and put them in their envelopes. And this just keeps it all organized for my little brain. It works for me. You may find a different process for yourself. This is just how my brain works, and this is how it's worked for me for several years. And I'll tell you, there was probably about 3 years I didn't do it this way because Picasso went away. My favoriteest photo editor in the whole wide world went away, and I floundered there for a little bit. So I didn't. I just kind of gave up on printing pictures and doing my journaling, and scrapbooking was so much more difficult for me because I didn't take the time to do this step first. So I would print, 40 or 50 pictures at a time for an event, and I could get the scrapbooking done. Here comes cat number 2. I'd get the scrapbooking done, but, get the page done, and I wouldn't want to journal. And that's part of why we do this, is to preserve the memories for the future generations. I'm doing this to preserve the memories for my child so that she can come back later and have our family history. So while this is not my favoritist ever part of scrapbooking, it's something that I need to do. It's something that makes my scrapbooking easier later. So I will happily sit down for a couple of days, because this is a multi-day process. I'll happily sit down for a couple of days and just get this done. Kind of like doing the dishes. You get the dishes done, you can enjoy the rest of your day. Get this part done, and I have at least a year's worth of scrapping that I don't have to worry about doing the hard part later. So once I get this process finished, I will print the vellum, cut it apart, put it in my envelopes. I'll put anything extra that I need for this scrapping, whether it's my calendars, whether it is any ephemera that won't fit in the envelopes, any other notes that I have, will all go into my 12 by 12 bucket. And then I will put a little sign on the bucket that tells me this bin is ready for scrapbooking. It has my photos, it has my journaling, it has my ephemera, it has everything. It is ready to scrapbook. So when it comes time for my events, whether it is scrapbooking at home, whether it is a one-day crop, whether it is a retreat, I just have to pick up this one bin, put it with my retreat stuff. I have all my photos, And then the bin also doubles as a way to bring those finished layouts home. So we'll show that process in just a moment at the end of the video of what it looks like at the very end. But I want to just take a moment. I hope you found some tips and tricks in this video that will help you get your photos ready for scrapbooking, that will help you tell your stories. And if you're like me and you have a hard time writing out the story, that it will help you get that information down, that your future scrapbooking is easier. Here I'm just taking that vellum, I'm going to cut it into 4s, I'm going to add it to the envelopes and just put everything into my bin along with my calendar that I can reference back later. I try to make it to where I don't need to rely on tech when I'm in a retreat because sometimes the Wi-Fi just isn't that great. So I try to make it to where I don't have to rely on technology when I am scrapbooking. So I also have a little kitty helper who just can't stand himself. He has to sit in that bin while I'm working. But again, I'm just adding the last of my envelopes to the bin, along with the vellum, adding my calendar, working around a cat because apparently he wants to be a helper. It's a wonder that bin did not break because he was not gonna move. And then my note is right there, and that's everything that just tells me what's in this bin and that it is ready to go. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know you have a choice of channels that you could be watching, and I am very, very thankful that you choose to spend a few minutes of your day with me. Until next time, bye!